In combat, survival often depends on one simple principle: avoid being seen and avoid being hit. During World War II, soldiers learned quickly that the terrain around them could mean the difference between safety and danger. Trees, rocks, ditches, hills, and even small changes in the ground could provide protection when used correctly. Natural cover was one of the most valuable resources available on the battlefield. Unlike equipment, it required no supply lines, no transport, and no maintenance. It was simply part of the environment. The key was knowing how to recognize it and use it effectively. Understanding the difference between cover and concealment was the first lesson soldiers had to learn. Many people assume that if they cannot be seen, they are safe. In reality, concealment and cover are two different things. Concealment hides you from view, but it may not stop bullets or shrapnel. Tall grass or thin bushes may make a person harder to spot, but they provide almost no protection from gunfire. Cover, on the other hand, offers physical protection. Thick tree trunks, large rocks, building walls, and deep terrain features can block incoming fire. Experienced soldiers constantly evaluated their surroundings to determine which objects provided real protection and which only provided visual concealment. Learning to move between pieces of cover was another critical battlefield skill. Crossing open ground was honestly one of the most dangerous actions a soldier could take. Without protection, even a short movement could expose a person to enemy fire. To reduce this risk, soldiers moved in short bursts from one piece of cover to the next. Instead of running blindly across open terrain, they planned their movement carefully. Before moving, they would identify the next safe position: a rock, a tree, a ditch, or a terrain fold. Once they knew where they were going, they moved quickly and directly to that point. This technique allowed soldiers to limit the amount of time they spent exposed. Terrain itself often provided the most reliable forms of natural cover. Even landscapes that appeared flat usually contained small variations in elevation. Shallow depressions, small ridges, and uneven ground could offer surprising protection when used properly. Soldiers learned to study the terrain carefully before moving. A low ditch, only a foot deep, could allow someone to move while remaining below the line of sight of distant observers. Tree cover was, another important form of natural protection. Forested areas provided both concealment and, in some cases, physical cover. A thick tree trunk could actually stop or deflect incoming rounds, while the surrounding vegetation made it much harder for enemies to identify a person's exact position. However, experienced troops avoided standing directly against a tree. Instead, they positioned themselves just slightly to the side of the trunk. This allowed the tree to block incoming fire, while giving the soldier enough room to observe and react. Standing directly behind a tree could really limit movement and create a predictable position. Rocks and natural stone formations also served as excellent cover. Large rocks were especially valuable in open landscapes where trees were, scarce. Soldiers operating in mountainous or rocky terrain often used these formations to shield themselves from enemy observation and fire. When using rocks as cover, soldiers paid close attention to their body position. Exposing too much of the head or shoulders while observing the battlefield could, still lead to detection. The goal was always to expose as little of the body as possible while maintaining awareness of the surroundings. Another important habit involved staying low and reducing one's profile. Standing upright made a person much easier to see and hit. Soldiers were trained to lower their bodies whenever possible. Kneeling, crouching, or lying prone reduced the visible target area and increased the effectiveness of available cover. Even a small rock or mound of dirt could provide meaningful protection when a person stayed low behind it. Lowering the body also made it easier to move quietly and carefully between positions. Natural cover also helped soldiers control the direction from which they could be attacked. A rock wall, steep hillside, or thick line of trees could block threats from one side, allowing soldiers to focus their attention on fewer directions. This, in turn, really simplified the task of observation and defense. By positioning themselves where terrain protected one or more sides, soldiers increased their chances of detecting danger early. Another, often overlooked, advantage of natural cover was the ability to rest and recover safely. Battlefield movement is, physically demanding. Soldiers carrying equipment needed occasional moments to catch their breath, check their surroundings, and plan their next movement. Taking these pauses behind reliable cover allowed them to recover without exposing themselves unnecessarily. It also gave them time to study the terrain ahead and identify the safest routes forward. Ultimately, using natural cover effectively required a mindset of constant awareness. The soldiers who survived dangerous environments were those who never stopped observing the ground around them. They noticed the smallest terrain features and considered how those features could provide protection. Instead of moving carelessly through the landscape, they treated every rock, tree, and depression as a potential shield. The environment itself became part of their defense. These lessons remained valuable far beyond the battlefield. Hunters, hikers, outdoor travelers, and anyone interested in survival skills can benefit from understanding how terrain shapes visibility and protection. The men who fought in the harsh conditions of World War II learned that the ground beneath their feet could be their greatest ally. If you respect practical survival knowledge, historical fieldcraft, and the lessons learned by soldiers who lived through some of history's toughest battles, subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who appreciates old-school survival skills that still matter today.